Welcome back to Lucid Living. And if this is your first time, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you aboard. My name is Andrew Larkin. I'm an actor, model, performer, storyteller, breathwork coach, and today I'm going to be your host, your guide for today's podcast episode. All right, my friends, we got a little blast from the past. I mean, I'm so excited to have a conversation with this guy because he is such an artist in like the purest sense of the word. And my first introduction to theater was actually he was one of the leaders in the space. So I'm just really excited. It's been a minute since we've had a chat. So get ready. It's going to be an amazing conversation. But before we introduce this guest and have this amazing conversation, we're going to do some nice, deep, intentional breath work. So today, I'm really feeling called with a box breath. I'm thinking a 5 second box breath, 3 rounds. Remember, as we inhale, we're going to inhale through the nose. And as we inhale, we're going to expand the belly like you're filling up a water balloon nice and big for 5. Hold it at the top for 5. Exhale out the mouth for 5. And then hold it at the bottom for 5. We're going to do that 3 times. And again, whether this is your morning, afternoon, or night, this is a balancing breath technique. So it just brings a little calmness, a little stillness for the rest of your day or going into your nighttime routine. So let's begin by grounding ourselves, tapping into this moment. And let's begin by inhaling through the nose in 3, 2, 1. Big inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale out the mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale out the mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Big inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale out the mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, we can return to our natural breathing patterns. Wiggle the toes, wiggle the fingertips, introduce some movement back into the body. Take a sip of water if you feel called. And my friends, today we got ourselves an artist, an actor, an educator, a mental health advocate, and a proud dog papa. It's my boy Jared Bernatowicz. What's going on, brother?
How you doing, man? Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It has been a minute since we've chatted, and I'm really glad this is the space that we get to reconnect and have a chat. So again, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this.
Dude, let's go. I love it. I love it. All right, we start every podcast off with just the here and the now. So let the audience know where are you geographically in the world, and then also just how are you feeling in this particular season of life?
So I currently live in this little borough. I call it my little corner of the world. It's called Bridgeport, PA. It's a small town of roughly probably about like 4,000 people, 5,000, but it's starting to grow. It sits right between King of Prussia, Conshohocken, and Norristown, right along the Schuylkill River. So it's really old. It's a cool place. Got a lot of character. I've been here for I think 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. Um, I work as an educator. I work currently in Lower Merion School District in an elementary school in an intensive autistic support program classroom. Um, what I've done pretty much my whole adult life after college is working with kids with special needs in various different ways. Um, I've always enjoyed it. It's very rewarding, super difficult at times, but I enjoy the fact that I get to help make a difference in these kids' lives and their families' lives by getting to help these kids. Um, Other than that, where I'm at right now, honestly, I've been a little stagnant, I would say. For a bit, about a couple months ago, for a bit, I had a fire under my ass. I was like 5 projects going at the same time, working, getting my health in order. And then recently my grandfather had just passed and kind of hit a wall. So I've been a little stagnant lately, but I'm starting to feel the embers kind of starting to pick back up. And I can kind of feel that fire is right around the corner, both like creatively, emotionally, just kind of where I'm going in life. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, man, dude, that's why I love just being in your presence because sometimes we have these conversations on these podcast platforms, and it feels like sometimes we have to perform, we have to like say how things are good all the times. And I feel like you're so vulnerable and open and really are like a mental health advocate. We're gonna dive into so much of that, but really creating just a space to be able to have these like real conversations that a lot of people don't have. And I'm just I'm stoked. I'm so excited, bro. I'm so excited.
Nice, man. Yeah, I love this.
Alrighty, so now we dive into the past. So this is the most loaded question I'll ever ask anyone, but I always find it interesting how people answer it because you can take this literally any direction that you want. And it's really just giving you an opportunity to share your life story. So I always find so much of who we are and the really the programming, soft programming, hardware comes from childhood, what our parents were like, what our environment was like, what elementary school, middle school, high school, college, like all the little steps that got you to where you are today. So if you don't mind, again, take this any way you want. What was life like for a young Jared growing up, and what kind of path did you take that led you to where you are today?
Man. So life for a young Jared was, I can't lie, it was good. I have very loving parents. I have very caring parents. I am the oldest of four. And my parents were really young when they had me. They were, I think, in their early 20s. And as everyone, there's kind of like that stigma and that stereotype of the oldest is always kind of like the test run baby. And there are definitely at times where like, yeah, it felt like that. But like I have no hard feelings towards like my parents. Like hold nothing against them from the way they raised me. Um, so it was good for the most part. My mom, she's always worked in the medical field, so she used to work in hospitals, and so oftentimes she would work these really long shifts. So like growing up, there was a lot, there'd be like a lot of periods of times where she wasn't around. And then my dad has been a lifelong educator, and has been an administrator now as a principal at an elementary school for most of his adult life. So he oftentimes was getting home late. And then also it was interesting growing up with your dad being a school principal. And sometimes kind of having that question in your head of like, am I getting dad talking to me right now, or is this the principal? We used to call it clipboard, like, oh, okay, clipboard, like, can dad show up for a moment now? Kind of deal. But so yeah, I was the first of four, and um, most of my young childhood, nothing really I could think of that was like super significant. Um, and then it's kind of like elementary school, where things kind of got a little dicey for me. I went to Catholic school my whole life until college, and it definitely was something that a kid like me, um, probably shouldn't have been in a Catholic school. Um, Catholic schools, like they don't have any kind of like special education programs. They don't do like IEPs like a public school would kind of like help create like a behavior plan if a kid's struggling. And I was like a what was considered like a problematic kid. Like I couldn't sit in my chair. I was very emotional, just couldn't pay attention, was told I couldn't shut up, like couldn't stay in my chair. I was just constantly in trouble. And being in a Catholic school and my parents at the time, I think being so young and me kind of being their first experience with all of this, um, like kind of just took, I think, the school's recommendations and stuff like that, which were just kind of like, let's pray on it, like kind of deal. And that's kind of like how most of like my what like at the time I didn't even know what like mental health was. I even mostly through high school even I didn't know like what mental health was kind of deal. It just wasn't taught in our school. And so it's one of those things where over the years, like when I was like now looking back, going through like mental health crises and stuff, I was oftentimes like, go to the priest and pray, have him talk. And I'm like, and it just never helped. It never. And essentially, I was then getting told, like, you're a bad kid. Like if you were following God's like, stuff and like rules that we're trying to imbue upon you, like you wouldn't have these feelings or these experiences. And it definitely kind of warped my understanding of mental illness, and it absolutely warped um how I dealt with it most of my life up until recently. Um so like that's kind of where I would say a lot of my like negative experiences come from, are just kind of a failure of the education system that I went through. Um but like, it was, other than that, I was for the most part your average, Delaware County stereotypical growing up with an Irish Polish Catholic household, playing sports, part of like the community little league, like, just your stereotypical kind of like dude bro. Like very much like macho kind of like, yeah. And at the time, it was very much at the time I was younger, it was like, yeah, this is what I want. Like this is exactly what I want. But as I kind of got older and was still doing it, it was kind of more a performance of like, all right, I got to keep playing the sports. I got to like, keep the hair short, like keep this kind of like manly kind of, macho, I don't have emotions kind of deal. Um, and that kind of got a little more difficult because I was like, I don't really enjoy this stuff as much as I like actually do. I'm just kind of doing it because it's what everyone else around me is telling me I should be doing. Um, and that also factored into kind of my journey with mental health. Kind of having this society idea of like what I should be as a man, what I should be doing, how I should be presenting myself, what activities I should be playing in. Um, and it was very much just toxic masculinity. I was absolutely like engaging in it. I was like the poster child for it at one point, I would say. Um, and it was toxic to myself more than anything at the end of the day, is what I learned. Like kind of living that lifestyle and having that mindset. Because because of those mindsets that I had created in my head when I was getting older and experiencing a mental illness more in depth, like more intensely. Um, it was the only thing that my brain would go to is like you figure it out. Like you just figure it out yourself, push it down, you know. We don't talk about it. We don't even try to acknowledge it. It doesn't exist kind of deal. Um, and I learned that that just makes things so much worse. It all comes out sooner or later. Um, no matter how much you try to run and hide from it, you can't. It's in there. It's in your head. You can't escape it. At some point, you're gonna have to address these feelings. And if you do what I did, which was just push it away, bottle it down, your life just goes absolutely haywire eventually. And then you're forced into a situation where you have to get help. Um, so yeah, a lot of my upbringing, like my past, that is what fed a lot into kind of me not addressing my mental health, or even acknowledging it. And on top of that, like it was like my senior year of high school was when the first time I was kind of like, hey, something is wrong here. Like I literally can't focus, kind of deal. And was having panic attacks. And so finally my parents were like, okay, we're gonna take you to a therapist. They took me to a therapist, and therapist was like, here's some drugs. And I'm like, okay. Took them, it kind of settled me out for the rest of the year. And then like freshman year of college, halfway through, I'm like, why the hell am I taking these? Like, I don't need these. Stop taking them. Stop going to my therapist. Like, whatever. Was fine. Like, coasted through for the most part of college. And then my anxiety would get bad again. And the big thing that came out though was my depression, which is something that as I've gone through therapy and stuff more recently, I've learned like I have lived with this depression like so much longer than I even knew I was. And that's when like once the depression kind of started coming out, that's when things kind of got bad. Um, and I just kind of like I was doing, just ignoring it, and finally my family and everyone around me was like, yeah, you got to talk to someone. We got to do something about this. So I was like, yeah, fine, cool, whatever. Went to therapy, kind of did the motions of it. But like never actually did any of the actual work. It was mostly at that time when I was going to therapy, I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for others, which was the problem. I found out is that I needed to be doing it for myself. I actually needed to be wanting to make that change within me. Um, which at the time I just wasn't. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'll figure it out. And so kind of same story, just kept pushing it down, went through grad school, started my like adult life, working, all that stuff. And um I would say within like the past 3 years, things kind of got really bad. Um, Everything just kind of crumbled within me, from just cramming it down after all these years. And it was starting to come out as this anger, like this uncontrollable anger towards myself and towards others. It was just the way the sadness within me was just manifesting, essentially. And I would just go on these tears. I would say these awful things to my friends, to my wife, to my parents, my family. Like, I would go on these absolute, like, tears of, like, text messages that, like, were just horrific to these people that were just trying to help me and that loved me and just wanted me to be okay. And like over the span of those 3 years, I would go through like these cycles of like really good, get really sad, and kind of push it away and then explode eventually on everyone. And it was just kind of like a cycle. And over the span of like the past 3 years during that cycle, like every single time without fail, I would like to most oftentimes my wife often because and that's what it was is this anger again would just come out and it was just like what's the most horrific thing that we can say to like really get under people's skin. So like my go-to then was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'll just go kill myself at this point, I guess, if that's like that. And over the years, I never meant it. It was one of those things where I just said it because I knew it was just like that last kind of nail in the coffin I could get in before the fight ended. Um, and then as I started approaching my 30th birthday, um, it just got worse. The depression and anger just got worse. I could just feel everything in my life kind of going completely out of control. And growing up, I don't know exactly when it started, but there was this kind of mantra that just kind of developed. And it was like in my late teens where I'm like, I will never make it to 30. Like there's no way. Like there's no way I'm making it to 30, have it be from one of like the various chronic health issues I live with or by a stupid choice I'm making and like putting myself in a situation or at my own hand. Like it was one of those things. And then 30 started coming around and I was in the worst spot I'd ever been. And that kind of started wiggling its way back into my head. And I was like, whoa. Um, and it was like almost at the time, like maybe this is a sign. Like, maybe you've been saying this all your life almost, and now things are just so awful for you. Maybe it's a sign. And it was again a fight with my wife, and I don't remember how it started or what it was about. I've definitely kind of blocked some of this out, um, or I've tried to almost forget some of it because it's all very fresh and I'm still kind of working through some of it. But this past year or so, my birthday is in December, and it was 3 weeks before my birthday, got into this big fight. Um, and instead of just saying like, you know, fuck this, whatever, the same spiel of like, I'll just fuck it, I'll kill myself. Okay. Um, I don't know what came over me, but there was like all of a sudden a text was sent and there was like details almost essentially. So at that point, my wife, rightfully so, freaking the fuck out, gets a hold of my mom and um essentially I get called over to my parents' house under like some kind of guise in a way. Like at the time I was like, you guys fucking ambushed me. Like this is an ambush. Like how dare you? But like looking back, it wasn't. It's um but so I roll up to my parents' house. I see my brother's truck is there and my sister's car is gone. And both my sisters are gone. And I was like, uh-oh, something's going on here. And I walk up into my living room of my parents' house, and it's my dad, my mom, and my brother, and they're all just sitting there. And I walk in, and I'm like, all trying to be chipper, like, yo, what's up, everyone? Like, how's it going? Great to see you. And I see my mom has a stack of papers. And I was like, all of a sudden, something in the back of my head was like, yo, those are screenshots. Like, those are screenshots. Wait a second. And they were. And it boiled down to all of a sudden I was like, uh-oh, I think I know what's happening here, which just made me furious. So like for an hour, it was me trying to negotiate and just fight with them and like all that kind of stuff. Um, because at the end of the day, they were like, you are, one of us is taking you to the hospital, or we are calling the police, and that's the way you will go. So after finally kind of coming to my senses and being like, because my background's like in psychology and like criminal all that stuff, I'm like, okay, I know if the police take me, like, that is so much worse. Like, you've already fucked up, dude. Let's not make this worse kind of deal. So, hopped in the car with my dad. We go to the ER. Um, and of course, at the time, it's at the height of like that crazy flu that was going around. And so it's packed. And so now I have to sit there knowing I am about to be put into a psych ward. And we sat there for maybe 4 hours. And it was the longest 4 hours of my life because it was so awkward. I was like, what do we do? How the fuck do I talk to this man right now? Like, I was so mad at him. And I'm like, and I was like, this man is probably so mad at me. I'm like, how? How? And then, of course, it was one of those things where, like, my father, being the man that he is, and it's where I get it from, is like in just the darkest of moments, the motherfucker will somehow find a way to make you laugh about the morbid situation we are currently in. And that's what he did. And then we talked the rest of the time, and it was like, you know, kind of starting to be able to heal before I even like checked in. Um, and so, you know, finally get admitted, and I voluntarily, signed myself in. Uh, and that was kind of that. Like it was like turn everything in kind of deal. Phones. You want your shoes? Okay, we're taking the shoelaces out. You have string in your shorts. Got to pull those out. The string in your hoodie, pull that out. like take all your jewelry off. It was a terrifying experience. It was like, this is wild. Like, this is crazy. And it was one of those things where that was the biggest thing was like fear. Um, like in that moment, I was just scared. And I found out like through all of this that a lot of the reason why I landed there and why I never actually got the help or like did any of the work, was because of fear. Just the simple concept of fear. Um, it's, everyone experiences it, and it's one of those things though that it sounds so mundane, but fear is the most parasitic, degrading entity within you, in my opinion, is what I have found. Um, because it's bullshit at the end of the day, a lot of the times, what you fear. Um, so I go in, get checked in, and first night kind of doing the whole like fuck all you, I shouldn't even be here, yada yada yada. They're like, yeah, we hear this spiel from everyone that comes in here. No one here belongs here. Like you're all oh yes, like you all just got. Um and so after that, the next day starts, and essentially I meet with social worker and psychologist and start like going over like, yo, what the hell happened? What's been going on? Here's kind of a game plan. And like they kind of laid out like, you know what, like, you play by the rules, you participate, like you'll get out of here, like, kind of deal. Because at the time I was like, I'm here forever. I was terrified that I'm like, oh, I'm here. This is it. I'm stuck here now forever. And it was one of those things where that first day, like actual day, I didn't go to any of the groups. I didn't go to any of the groups. I didn't take any of the opportunities to like do the family call, and it was all because it was because of fear. I was like, I don't want to, I don't, I'm like, if I'm going to be stuck here forever, whatever, I'm not doing this right now. So then second day, start getting a little bored and was like, you know what? We'll go to group. And after like 20 minutes of being in that first group session, which was like the first time I've ever been in a like group therapy scenario, um, I was like kicking myself in the face because I was like, why the fuck did you wait this long? And why did it have to take this for you to finally go to group therapy? Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck me, I see how this works. Like this whole time, and that's why I like never did it, because therapists in the past were like, you're a prime candidate for it. I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to talk about my feelings with you in the first place, let alone with a group of people. I don't care. Like it, no. And so that whole, and by the end of it, I was just so like, I was in tears because I was like, I'm like, I can't believe this is like actually helping in this horrific moment, and that it's this whole time I've just been kind of kicking it to the side. Um, so that was kind of like, most of like what it was though. It was just going to groups, hearing people's stories, learning different coping skills, from professionals and from people who are there with you. And that was like the craziest thing as well is like the people there are, I feel like the people I learned from the most at the end of the day. Just hearing their stories because they all were different ages, came from different backgrounds of life. I mean, it was just a gambit of people from different walks that all at the time needed the same help that I needed. Um, and so I go through, and during this whole time I'm reading, they allow me to have a book that I bring in. So I was like, I'm gonna be here a while. What's the biggest book I have in my house? And it was the first Dune book. And so I got that brought to me, started reading it. And like one of the first things in it is they have this thing called the Liturgy of Fear. It's a mantra that they use. And the first line is fear is the mind killer. And I was like, God damn it. I was like, well, if this ain't fucking poetic. Because that whole time I'm like, it's fear. Fear is what had been stopping me. Fear of, fear of like, if I asked for help a while ago, like, what would everyone around me think? They'd think I'm weak. Like, it was that fear. And to see that kind of line of fear is the mind killer. And like, it's one of those things that just kind of goes on and it talks about how, like, you just got to let it pass through you. And when you destroy that fear, the only thing that will be left is you. Like you will remain still without that fear. Like it's so I read the book, went to group, and like, the same kind of like fear was kind of like this parasitic and like, entity within the book that was, eating away at some of the protagonists. And once they kind of overcame fear and like made choices that they were so terrified to make because of what they were trying to please everyone around them. Like it changed their life for the better. And so once I kind of finally just looked at fear like really right in its face and just pushed it away almost. It was like this weight, this immense weight just kind of started to lift. And so that was kind of the big thing. Was I stopped being scared. Um, so I just like I read the book, just stuck with that mindset of like, we don't, you can beat the fear. And, doing the work of going to group and, I got out. I really wasn't there that long at the end of the day. I mean, like there's people there that they were like, I've been here for 8 months. And I'm like, that's so heartbreaking and like terrifying. And then it was like one of those things where like I did the work. And I showed them like I am not a like I'm not a harm to myself. I'm not a harm to others. Like I have these a better hold on things. And yeah, so I think it was like a just about a week maybe. And so then I got out and kind of started to try to return to life. Um, Obviously I took quite a bit of time off from work just to kind of process and, kind of heal. Um, and then during all that as well, I then started an intensive outpatient program, and it was recommended that I do an intensive DBT group kind of setting, and that that was it, I that's a lot of the skills that I have now, I learned all through that for the most part. But like that was probably the most difficult thing I've ever done was that DBT group therapy because it was 8, 9 weeks, 4 times a week, 2.5 hours each session. So there was a period of time when I'm, in this therapy where I did go back to work. So it was like 4 out of the 5 days, I'm going to work and then coming home to like essentially have maybe like half an hour if I'm really lucky to like myself and then got to jump in to therapy and like so that part of it was rough. And there was a lot of times where I almost quit and almost just threw it all away, like all this work I had just done. And I recognized that again. It's because it was fear starting to, wiggle its way back in. And it was this fear of like, fear of missing out, like, kind of deal. And then I kind of had that aha moment of like, yeah, you might be scared that you're missing out on things, and you might be missing out on things right now, but if you weren't doing this right now, and if you don't continue to do this and do the work, for all you know, you might not be around in the future and you're gonna miss fucking everything. And so that kind of like was the where I would go back. It was like, this is stupid. It's stupid to fear that I am missing out on maybe a couple things here and there when literally my entire future is at stake here. So I got through that, and it was great. I made a lot of really good connections, learned a lot of really good coping skills, and it just really set me up to be the person I want to be. And I'm really grateful for it. And no matter how difficult it was at the time. Um, and so yeah, so since then I've now just been working one-on-one with a therapist right now. And at the moment we're kind of in a little bit of a limbo. I'm waiting to, get hooked up with like a psychiatrist and kind of really dive in and kind of like lockdown. Like, all right, what is like a diagnosis that we're gonna operate under? Like, and really, take the time to figure out what is the best plan moving forward, depending on diagnosis. Because that's kind of like the thing that I am like a little hung up on is like a lot of the times, like through the various fake attempts of going to therapy. There were times where I did kind of put the effort in, but like each different therapist I went to, I got a different diagnosis every time. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, like this is not, and that also was like a big factor as to why I was like, I'm not gonna get help. Everyone keeps telling me something different. Um, which like in part though was like because I also was like oftentimes probably leading them astray sometimes where they're like, "Oh, how do you feel? Like, are you having like suicidal like thoughts?" I'm like, "Oh no," as I'm like looking out my third floor window, being like, "What if I did just jump though?" kind of deal. So I'm like, this is like the first time I'm actually like committed and being like, my life could be so much easier if I actually do the work. Like and the longer I do it, it's really not that hard at the end of the day once you kind of get into the groove of it. So yeah, that's kind of the journey
Mhm.
um from where it kind of started and like where I'm at right now.
Mhm. Brother, man, first of all, thank you for just being so open to sharing all
Of
that.
course.
And I love you, bro. I really do. And I want to dive into the minutia of mental health, but first I really want to highlight because you didn't share much about your artistic and creative journey as well. And I feel like and when I think about you, I think of an artist. I see the paintings behind you, and hearing your story made me think of Shia LaBeouf and like
I
him
love it.
playing for the center and then coming out with this incredibly amazing, almost like biopic in a creative format of his like life story. And I
Yeah.
see you turning like pain into art. So I want to dive into that side of you. And when did it kind of start? When did you start discovering? I have a different outlet to be able to place this energy, to be able to maybe place this pain. I can actually, when did performing start coming into um, the picture where you could like start stepping into different characters and different almost avatars where you're not necessarily yourself, but you get to play in other different versions. And then you can talk about performing through theater. I know you do photography and painting and different kinds of creative expressions. But yeah, when did that come into the picture and how did that manifest over the years?
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely would consider myself an artist, like a very creative person. It's one of my kind of it's one of those things I'm trying to work on. It like for some reason, like my art and stuff and like theater and photography, I always struggle like when people are like, dude, like this is good. Like this is so cool. And I'm like, I just kind of do it for fun. I don't know. And like I don't know. But it all started, it was senior year of junior year of high school is when I kind of started doing like some like drawing and stuff. And that was I yeah, I forget why I was in Philadelphia, but I was in Philadelphia for something, and I started seeing like I always like I grew up going to like going into the city, going around in the area, always seeing graffiti, but like I kind of like really noticed it for the first time, and I was like just then seeing it all across the city. And then I would started noticing like, wait, there's like these big ass murals and stuff. So it was like, but it was like the graffiti that really drew me in. I was like, this is just so cool. And it was like the fact that it was kind of like this, kind of like fuck you as well to the like establishment and system of like, I'm gonna put fucking art wherever I want kind of deal. And then like tell a message with it sometimes that's where like my love for like drawing and painting started coming in. I can remember, yeah, like that summer, my brother and I got like we like broke into my dad's like spray paint collection, and then like in our backyard just got like big ass pieces of like wood, and then we're just like trying to spray paint ourselves, and then like it just kept growing from there. Um, but yeah, and then my for theater, that was my senior year of um high school when that all started. And it honestly started as a joke. Like leading up to that, like I was athlete, like, doing soccer, doing this and that. And then like I had to completely stop sports my sophomore year, because I got knocked out cold on the soccer field, horrific concussion. Um, and that was like my sixth one at the time, at that young, ripe age that my brain was. And that kind of like did me in. And so I was really like looking for something. And one of my friends, who I used to always rag on for, so I was like, dude, like, I'm like, that's what girls do, dude. Like, that's we don't do that here. And like being in a Catholic school, there was also very much that kind of mindset of like very homophobic people and thoughts. And like it was kind of like at the time, I definitely had that like, fucked up, like toxic masculine of like, only gay guys do theater, like kind of deal. And so my friend was like, fuck you, just try it. I bet you'll love it. And so I was like, you know what? Fine, fine. I'll do it. I'll come out to Peter Pan auditions with you. I'm like, I'm not doing anything else. It's my senior year. Like, what else am I gonna do? And then I did it. And then I got a call back. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, wait. I was like, this isn't. I'm like, okay. And my friend was like, buddy, what the fuck? Like, where did that come from? Like, did you know you could do this? I was like, no, not really. I'm like, I sing at home. I've always enjoyed singing at home and like kind of dancing in my room when no one else is watching. I'm like, I've always loved that kind of stuff. But I'm like, never in front of people. In front of people, I'm like, no, we're like man's man, like sports. Like, yeah. Um, and so I got the call back and then I went, did it, and then I got cast. And I was like, what is happening? So I was like, you know what? Fine. This will be, you know what? I'll give it a try. It'll be fine. Whatever. And yeah, I just jumped headfirst in. And ever since then, uh, it's my love. It's my passion. Um, it's for everyone. That's what I've like really have learned, and like the biggest lesson I have learned through my years of doing theater, is that anyone can do it. Anyone. It doesn't matter you know, your upbringing, your background, your physical abilities, your mental. I mean, everyone can do it. And that's what I love about it. And that's why it was like it's been so pivotal for me, in kind of like using it as a coping mechanism or like a way to kind of heal or work through some trauma or struggles. And it's because as well, like you get to meet people who also have gone through life, and you get to hear their stories and get to see them transform and put those stories and emotions into these characters as well and see how they do it. And it's just, yeah, it's one of those things where it's ever since that ever since I took it as a joke and kind of went out there and did that, I've just never looked back. And I'm really grateful for it. And yeah, shout out to my friend Ryan McGinnis. I apologize for always, for all those years ago, always ragging on you, because if it wasn't for you, I would not have been introduced to one of the things I love most and find dear in my life. So yeah,
Shout out Ryan. Shout out Ryan. Dude, I love those stories because there's always like that spark, like that discovery of the spark that just
yeah,
lights something unreal and then you follow it and it's amazing. I find theater specifically, I think everyone should take at least a theater class
I
because one,
absolutely agree.
I mean, I do want to talk about the education in a bit, but for me, it was like you're taking math and science and history, and like I'm sitting down and I'm listening and I'm trying to take notes, and then every once in a while we'll do like a group exercise. But with theater, you don't survive if you don't connect, if you don't collaborate, if you don't work together, and you have that embedded community, and then you're also tapping into emotions and giving permission to be able to play and be silly. I mean, I think everyone would absolutely benefit from that, and I think it's just so powerful, and it's really cool to see you kind of grow over the years with that. I also want to talk about Yikes a Wolf Productions. Tell me a little bit about. I actually don't even know much about this. I saw this on your bio and I was like, wait, this is sick.
Yeah, so Yikes a Wolf Productions. It's been in limbo at the moment just because life started life in real hard, literally right as we were like hitting the ground running and getting things like ready to go.
Mm.
Um it's a production company my wife and I are trying to start where like we both are lovers of the performing arts, but as we've gotten older, we have found ourselves more and more being drawn to like short form film and the stories that you can tell in just a fragment of, compared to like a long form blockbuster movie. And so um it all stems from we were watching like a short horror film on YouTube made by just like some independent film company. It was shot completely on like their iPhone 14 and then edited completely on it, and it was like crazy. And we're sitting there and we're like, we could do this. Like we could do this. Like, we always will like watch things and be like always we're so much like we're those people that are like nitpicking things, being like weird choice. Why is that the camera angle? What? Just cut all that dialogue. Like people hate watching things with us. And so we always have had these kind of like moments where we'll sit there and then we'll just pause and then we'll like take a turn, each being like, all right, well, here's what I would have done then. And then like create like this whole crazy ass story. And then it's just like that little story that we just came up with in like a 10 minute sitting there, like, shooting the shit. It's like, wait, like if we could take that and like make that a 10 minute like short form and like have an actual film here, like a short film here. So we started kind of writing scripts and stuff, and we have a couple scripts finished and all that, and now it's a matter of just kind of figuring out the technical. That's where we're like hitting the wall. We're like, okay, we have like the idea, the vision, we have the dialogue. I can see the setting. I see exactly where everyone is, how it moves. I know how to point a button on a camera and take a still image. But like recording and then editing and managing light, sound, like it is so much more daunting than I ever thought it would be. But we were like, you know what? Fuck that. It doesn't have to be. We could do this with what we have. So that's kind of like what we want to do with Yikes a Wolf Productions is we really want to kind of collaborate with people who are just like, I have these crazy ideas, but like I need people to just kind of help me put it together. And that's what we want to do is be able to like have a space and bring people together to make scripts or and like bring people who are like, photographers and videographers and so it's one of those things where it's a lot more. The next step for us is like networking. That's really what we need to do. Is kind of network and kind of start trying to make connections in that realm. So yeah, that's like a project, yeah, like a fever dream, like passion project of my wife and I that is like it doesn't matter how long it takes us, sooner or later, our first short film will be out there somewhere. And having that there right now is like that constant reminder of like, something we can work, something we can try and manifest, man. So yeah, that's like a little bit of like what that is.
Dude, I'm so that makes me so excited because also I feel like Philadelphia is an interesting market where it's not like known for film or like TV. Like we have certain things like yeah, M Night and like there is like an artistic community, but I think it definitely wants to be growing. But dude, I
Absolutely.
did I wrote my own kind of short film and then the idea of actually shooting like the 16 pages of it became honestly weirdly, strangely too daunting to do. So I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot a scene, and then I
It,
just there's a I'm gonna I'll hit I'll set I don't even remember the name of it, but there's like it's like an app or something, but it's like a networking app for filmmakers in the
oh, that's
Philadelphia
cool.
area, and
Okay.
I literally just like pitched my idea, and there are so many people like just looking for things to do and to like build their reel, build their resume.
That's
That a
sick.
lot of people would do it for free. Like you could get like I got a DP. I ended up like paying him like gas money, and he had like a
Okay.
thick, like red camera. Like it was crazy. And then I got a sound guy. I got like a like it was crazy, and I was just like, there's really a community out there, and I really thought I think like living in like my fear of being like I am not good enough. I'm not going to be able to pay them. I'm not like this, but like so many people
Exactly.
just want to create, and if you have a good story with a passion behind it and you can like talk about it and get people excited, and especially it feels like a lot of like horror genres like might be out there, and like people freaking love doing like indie like low budget horror stuff.
That's like our bread and butter is like what we want to do is like old school practical effects as much as possible. Let's just make it gnarly and have fun with it.
Dude,
Like, yeah, but no,
100%.
that's cool. I didn't know that existed. That like that could be like an absolute game changer for me. So
No, I will.
thank you
I'll
for
send
that.
that to you. I forget what the freaking name's called, but I'll get that to you and I'll send it to you because again, there's a lot of people who've been doing it for even a long time, and could probably like give you resources if they can't do it or time and stuff like that, then they know someone who can. So we'll make
That's
that happen.
awesome.
But
Cool, cool.
storytelling, brother, saving lives. All right, now I want to dive into a little bit about the education system because I find it really cool because hearing your story so much and just knowing kind of who you are, like you are such a man of service, and then hearing the struggles with mental health on top of that, it's kind of like sometimes I feel like we can be giving so much of ourselves to other people that we like can sometimes like forget to take care of ourselves and fill our cup up first because we're just pouring out so much. But in the education system, particularly, you're working with special needs kids and communities. Talk to me, was that always kind of in the picture? Did you know you wanted to be an educator, or did it kind of was it just something you're like, all right, I'm like at some point, I can see myself doing this, and but like, how did that come into fruition? And then we'll talk about the education system itself.
It was the absolute last thing I ever wanted to do with my life growing up. It's growing up, growing up with my father being an educator and then principal, um, and then like having aunts and a grandmother who also worked in the education system. It was one of those things where I was like, I never want to do what any of you do. Like, and it was a lot mostly because at the time I was like, I hate my teachers. I hate school. I hate this process. This is all stupid. I never want anything to do with it again when I'm done. And so no, like that was never a thought, for the longest time. And then went to college and I went for my undergrad in psychology and was working under the mindset that I wanted to go and do more of like criminal justice kind of work with it. And so I was like, I'm gonna go work for a letter agency one day. Like that's the goal. Like get the psych degree, then you go to Quantico if you get accepted, like and you do like that's the type of school I want to be in. Um, and then I came to my senses pretty quickly, and was like, I want nothing to do with any of those. That's the last thing I want to be around is some crazy stuff like them. And then like also having to essentially sacrifice my entire life to a government that at the end of the day is most likely not actually going to be there for me. So I was quickly like, shit, I got no idea what I actually want to do now. So yeah, I was going through college and just kept doing my courses and it was it was my sophomore year. It was my it was the summer after sophomore year. I started working at a summer camp that my dad used to work at when he was my age. And I was like, all right, I need a job. I need something to do. I'm like, oh, I get to go outside and, you know, play sports and whatnot with like kids all day kind of deal. Like, absolutely. But then they told me, they're like, oh, no, you're not going to like work outside. Like, you're going to do theater camp. And I was like, oh shit, that's actually balling. Like I'll do that. I get to stay inside. Okay, cool. So like that was my first introduction to like kind of child like work. Was doing theater camp at this camp. And I was like, yeah, I might like working with kids a little bit. Like, and so the idea started entering my head, and I was like, all right. Kept going through school, like, and then kept going back to the camp each summer, being like, I can't wait to go back. Like, all right. And then but like, there was still that thought in my head. I'm like, I don't want to work with kids like all the time, though. I'm like, I like can do it for 3 months, but like year round for the rest of my life, I don't know about that. Um, and so then was doing that, and then I had to do an internship. And for the internship, one of the options I could do for psychology was go work in a classroom in a school in the area. And I was like, oh, cool. Like this will really help me like solidify. So I went, and by the end of the first week, I was in my advisor's office being like, I need a new placement right now, and it cannot be with kids. I do not want to work in a school, I found out. Absolutely not. So she was like, all right, cool, whatever. Transfer me over to like a law firm where I helped them out, which I was like much more like, all right, this is cool. I kind of like this stuff. Like I like the criminal justice end of this. So did that. And senior year came around and graduate summer comes and I'm working the summer camp again. And then August rolls around and I'm like, oh, I need like an actual job now kind of deal. Like, wait a second. Um, so what ended up happening was is my father, who's been a principal in the school district of Lower Marion for 15, 16 years now. He was like, hey, another elementary school is hiring, instructional aides. I know this is something that you've never considered. You have no idea what it is, but like they'll train you. You're gonna get to work with like the best person in the district right now. Um, and so I was like, they're like, you'll get health, you'll get paid, and they're like, you'll get paid through the summer and you won't have to work if you don't want to. So like as a newly graduated college kid, I was like, you know what? I'll sit in a classroom and work with kids. Yeah, why not? Um, and so I did. I applied, went through, got the job, and um, yeah, I fell head over heels in love with it. It was crazy. It was so unexpected. It was so out of left field. Um, but a lot of it has to do with, I think, honestly, where I landed for my very first job there. Um, the teacher that I got to work with and the team that I got to work with, were just a phenomenal group of people. That all they wanted to do was do everything possible to give these kids who are at what people consider a disadvantage a fighting chance to be a part of life and to live a life and to thrive. And I mean, these people and myself included, as I've gone on, like have been bitten, spit on, pooped, peed, thrown up, blood. People have had like bones, noses broken, concussions. It is extremely difficult at times, and it can be so exhausting and fatiguing, and it feels very thankless at times. But these people never once gave up. We're just like threw in the towel. Each day was a new day, and these kids got the same exact, attention and support they needed day in and day out. And like seeing how these people operated, I think that's what I was like. I want to do that. I want to be a part of this. So it was really, really a big part thanks to that classroom, and the staff that I got to work with there. That made my really kind of nailed down my love for this job and why I've done it for so long now.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Um, I want to talk about the education system for a little bit. I don't like talking negatively about certain things too long a period of time, but I have a
Hmm.
book right here called The Death and Life of the Great American School System. And I know that like the structure of the school system, like a teacher and then like desks with students like came from like in the military, but now it's just like circumstances are very different. New problems arise that like the way each student studies and retains information is very different from the person next to them. Like some people are kinesthetic, some people are auditory, some people are visual, and we teach sometimes I think we do a disservice to a lot of students, a lot of kids, especially in like the public school setting. Honestly, a lot of school settings, but and not having opportunities. I think now we've learned a lot from certain mistakes, like having IEPs. I know my little sister's going through a tough time and she had I think it's an individual education program specifically for her, which again, I think everyone should have a curated almost education plan for them.
Agree.
But now we also have social media and we have all these other sleuth of like AI is now infiltrating like the education system with what the
Yeah.
ability of what kids can do nowadays. So how
Yeah.
have you kind of seen the education system evolve and the way students kind of learn in these systems over the years? And then also like in your actual school setting.
So like I mean the biggest thing that I've seen with the education system and like just kind of like with research that's come out over the years is that kind of that mindset of the way classrooms are structured right now. Is it actually, the way it should be? And oftentimes the research came up, no. Like you said, very much comes from like a very militarized, orderly, and like you said, all everyone learns so differently, and it's it's just so difficult. Because I mean, so I'm gonna speak mostly just from my experiences in the school district I have worked in, just because it is so different from district to district. Because like certain districts get more resources or like kind of like set things up differently, and a lot of it comes down to like how the board operates. There's just so many factors. It really is crazy that education has become so convoluted and saturated with all these different factors, and I'm like the focus should just be on the kids at the end of the day and like giving them what they need to thrive and succeed in life. But like so for instance, like the biggest thing that I see as being a hindrance for us and being able to provide kids with a more kind of like personalized individualized like learning or teaching style is the issue of like classroom sizes and staffing are like the two big ones. More and more like classrooms are getting bigger and bigger with less and less staff. There are some school districts where they have classrooms where it's one teacher, 40 students in the room. All 40 of those kids do not learn the same exact way. And that teacher wants to do everything they can, but at the end of the day, the problem is the easiest thing to do is just do what the state tells you. Here's our standardized teaching style. Here's the information that needs to be taught. You do this, the kids should be set up to succeed through their education. It's really not the case, in my opinion, these days, but the standardized education system is such a it's a double-edged sword because it does allow and like off the whole point of it is to ensure that everyone like has equity and is able to learn all the same materials and like have access to the same kind of stuff. But at the same time, like the information and the way they go about being like, here's how you have to teach math now. Um, is just I'm like it oftentimes doesn't make sense. Like that's the big thing when I talk to people is like I have to explain to students because they'll be like, "Hey, can you help me?" And I'll be like, "I wish I could, but the way that I learned how to solve this problem and how I know how to solve this problem still, the way you're trying to be taught it, like I don't know. I don't know what that is. It's crazy how many steps have been added into just doing simple addition problems." And I feel like it was done to try and help. Like it seems like this all like the standardizing and like the changing of how we teach math, or how we teach like spelling and grammar was all done to be like, oh, we need to cater to kids who might be struggling. kind of deal, but it just feels like it's now just been this crazy overcorrection. And now it's so much. And yeah, oftentimes like the teacher's hands are tied, at the will of the state of being like, I would love to teach you the most easy way to solve this problem, but the state has the standardized setting of like no, because when state testing comes around, that's what they're gonna have to do to pass the test, to like do the work on the test. So, but yeah, it's the standardization of education, large classroom sizes, not enough staff. Those are, yeah, like kind of the big hindrances that I see in our education system right now, and really being able to give kids, each child, the proper education and style of education that they deserve. And like there are schools like that. There's Montessori schools, stuff like that, where there is more of this like discovery kind of teaching where like the child is playing with, shapes, and they seem really interested in shapes that day. So their whole education for that day is going to be structured around like learning shapes and doing things with shapes, like kind of a more individualized, like what are they interested in? Let's teach them using what they're interested in. Um, but you better be rich, unfortunately, to get that kind of experience for your child. Which is unfortunate because oftentimes, I think there are kids who thrive in that standardized, we all sit in a desk, I sit there and learn and get lectured at. And then there's kids who learn from that more hands-on. And unfortunately, it's a matter of access. If you don't have the money and your kid would thrive in a school like that, well, oftentimes the district just tells you, oh, well, we have school for you here, even though it might not be what your kid might thrive in. So it's a lot. There's
Such a
so much in it right
complex
now. It's so complicated.
Such a complex problem. I mean, I have
It
so many
is.
friends who felt so like let down by the system, and then start brainstorming how can we, or how could it be better? How could we fix this? And there are so many levels to kind of address, like systematically,
Yeah.
um, economically, politically. Like it's crazy, and that gap is hopefully at someday we can get closer to bridging that gap. Maybe not today, but keep leading with love and keep being a good example. It's cool because it reminds me of like The Pit. There's this new show on Max called The Pit, but it's about
Mom's
art.
obsessed with this
Oh,
show.
so good. I have a friend who is like like a guest or a co-star, I guess, in it.
Oh,
We
that's
saw
cool.
like two episodes really quick, and it is so good. And like that's why I love film, TV, storytelling because it can get a glimpse into the world that I have no knowledge or understanding of.
Yeah.
But one of the big kind of things that it addresses so many problems. But one of the things is you have this ER room that's completely overpopulated, and like people are waiting there for 4 or 5 hours, and you think, oh, it's their problem, like they're not funneling people enough, but no, it's not on them. It's because they're not funded. It's because they don't have enough nurses to bring and space. It's just like it's crazy. And sometimes I think emotions can get involved and it can make us jump the gun a lot. But and also sometimes like the cynical nature, we think people are out to get us, but ultimately I think there are a lot of really good people. It's just the systems kind of need to change, and we're
Yeah.
getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. I do want to touch on mental health a little bit. We can talk about this for literally hours. And I also wanted to talk, you have the podcast, yes, talking about mental health, because I want to talk about like advocacy, like how do we advocate for mental health?
Yep.
So do you want to share a little bit about the podcast, the idea, the community that you're building with that?
Yeah. So, after I kind of got out of my inpatient program, and was doing outpatient, one of the things that we had to do that kind of helped us through the process was like we had a project. We had to come up with a project kind of deal. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write a paper and give a presentation. And as I was going through it, I was like, I don't know, like, what do I talk about, kind of deal. And um, just one day, I was having a conversation with two of my buddies, and the one was like, yo, dude, like, I know this wasn't easy. Like, I'm really proud you did this. Like, you got the help you needed, no matter how hard it was. Like, we're so proud of you, hyping me up, all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. Like, appreciate it. And then, like, this thought just ripped through my head where I'm like, why aren't you in therapy? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, you literally just were telling about like how like your anxiety is unbearable and like has been literally making you sick kind of deal. Like, why aren't you in therapy? Like every excuse under the sun, I've tried, it just doesn't, not for me, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, what kind of like hypocritical bullshit is this? And then it like dawned on me. I'm like, we all fucking do this as men, I think. Like, I'm like, wait a second. Because then I start thinking of like other people, other men in my lives. And I'm like, wait, like, okay. So I started thinking about that, like, more and more. And then I was like, fuck it. Oh, like, this is what my presentation will be about is like the hypocrisy of men getting, mental health services and getting help. Um, and so, like, I wrote the paper up, all that. And as I'm like going through it more and more, I'm just like, I wish I could just like, I wish I had the time to talk to actual guys about this right now. Like, so I could get their input and get like actual stories in here. But like, just the way, and then, yeah, I like typed it up, submitted all that stuff, and like, it just that thought kept coming up in my head of like I want to I want to talk to guys about this. I need to talk to other guys about this. Like I feel like it was almost like this insatiable burning of like almost like a duty all of a sudden was just thrown on me. Of like you got to go talk to people. Like and so then it stumbled into like how do you even do this? What do you do? Like how do you do this? And the idea of the podcast came up. Um and I was like I might be able to do this. So yeah, I put together Homies Mental Health and Hypocrisy podcast. And the whole premise of it is I want to bring men on from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, and just have a really raw, candid conversation about mental health, things they have experienced and struggled with, and then talk about um, like why didn't you get help sooner, or why are you still not getting help now? Um, and just really kind of have a difficult conversation and hope that, you know, if the guest that I had isn't actively in therapy, maybe they give it a try, or someone that's listening, if they're not in therapy and has never tried it, maybe it gives them a little push to like just give it a try. So, see, that's where it stemmed from. Again, it's like another thing that I was like so gung ho and was hitting the ground running for. And then it was like all of a sudden my grandpa got sick and then everything. So, but that's literally like the other day, I was like, I opened up my files and was like, all right, let's lock in. Let's get this show on the road. It's what my grandfather would have wanted me to do anyway, is just keep chugging along. So I am looking to get that up and running soon. Hopefully getting a couple episodes recorded and out there. But yeah, it's really just mostly there at the end of the day to help men, anyone. At the end of the day, it doesn't have to be men. Like women can listen as well. Like they might benefit because oftentimes our struggles impact the people around us, especially the women in our lives. So like that's another thing is like, I want to have my wife come on at least like once a month and have conversations with women who have like experienced the byproducts or like the side effects of like a partner or like parent, like a dad with mental illness. And just candid, open conversations. But it's all, yeah, advocacy. I just want to get the messages out there, get people help, and provide resources, to do so if they do decide to get help. So yeah, that's the podcast.
Dude, I'm freaking planting the seed, bro. Planting the seed. If you ever need anyone, I'm here. I'm here.
Dude,
I'm not bad for
absolutely.
it.
I trust me, I'm getting you on there. Don't
I
worry.
I am obsessed with the idea, and I love the name too. So I'm so excited to
Thank
see
you,
that
thank you. You gotta have a
continue.
good name.
Yeah, yeah, continue to grow. All right, so one quick question about
Yep.
mental health that I wanted to dive into. Again, we could talk about this for hours, but when you were going through the schooling system, and then you were also playing sports, you were in those environments, and then you had mentioned the toxic masculinity started coming in, and it started creating narratives in your head. And I'm curious, like the idea of shoving things down, of like acting a certain way, were those things that people told you, like you have to act this way, you have to like shove it, you have to be this, or was that like a narrative in your head that just through the environment and like watching other people and then like assuming I'm supposed to be this way, so then you like create that story and then you put yourself in a box and then you act that way? I'm curious because I have like a I always think sometimes it's like people like are telling you specifically
Hmm.
things that happen, and then I like reflect on my life. I'm like, no, I just like created these crazy stories and I just like boxed myself in for like it was just me. It was crazy, but
Yeah.
I'm curious what your experience was.
Yeah, so I would say growing up, like going through school, like through like grade school and high school, it was like people literally telling me like you can't have long hair because you're a guy. Like guys, we don't paint our nails, we don't wear jewelry, and it was a lot. It was I think a lot because it was such an echo chamber, and I had been because I went to Catholic school, like. I was with the same exact group of people for 12 years of my life. And it becomes an echo chamber very quickly. So it was a lot of, yeah, being told, and like a lot of it came from like my soccer teammates at the time, mostly of like, you got to start lifting, put on muscle. Because I was like at the time a tinier, very lean guy. And I was like, no, I'm quick. Like, I'm quick and fast. Like, that's my thing. And they're like, oh, no, dude, like, we got to get big. And I'm like, okay, so like it was like those kind of narratives where yeah, we're like getting pushed, but then it was those narratives continued, but they were internal once I got to college because like everyone else around me at that point in time then was actually being like, yo, no, like talk to me about your feelings. We can or like, dude, you want to dress this way? You want to grow your hair out? You want to wear makeup? You want to wear nail polish? Like whatever, like do it. Just do it. And then like for the longest time I still didn't, and it was at the time I was like still telling myself like, oh, this is what people want, like got to present this way, got to don't show emotions, when yeah, no, like you said, it was like starting in college it was all just internal at the end of the day of that, just kind of for some reason my mind being like, this is what you think everyone needs you to be and do right now. So yeah, it was like a it's transitioned, yeah.
Yeah. All right, my brother, dude. We gotta slowly start wrapping her up, but again, I love these conversations, dude, and I want to continue to have more. But before we wrap up, we talked about the past, talked about the present. Now dive into a little bit about the future. Now, this is something I always ask. When I originally asked, I was like, bro, tell me the dreams, tell me the goals, tell me your like, show me your vision board, like, give me the goods. And then sometimes when I reflected on that, I'm like, you know what? Even personally, I think it helps to sometimes speak about it in the manifestation process, but at the same time, I really align with not talking about it and then letting your actions speak for itself and then letting the work speak for itself. So I go kind of both ways. So, however, you're willing or able to answer this question, it could be a vision of the future, it could be feelings that you want to experience, it could be a mood board, it could be colors that you want to experience, or particular specific things that you want to manifest with like the different businesses and things you have going on in your life. So what is your envisionment for you for the future? Because you're gonna be sticking around here for a long time, man. All right. And I
I
wanna
absolutely am. Dude, you just said that, and like you're going through that, and for some reason, like the first thing that just came into my head was like, there are beautiful trees out there that I have not met yet that I want to go meet. There are so many beautiful forests and like places that dawn this earth that I've never seen. I want to go meet some of these beautiful trees, see these beautiful places, go see the things that make sticking around absolutely worth it at the end of the day. So like that was like the first thing that came to mind. Other than that though, I just want to keep healing. I want to keep growing. I just want to keep thriving. And then I want to feel content. I want to feel content at some point. It doesn't have to be now, it doesn't have to be a month, 2 years from now, but I want to at least before I pass over into whatever next journey there is after this human one, I want to be able to look back and be like, I'm content with how things have panned out. That's what I want for my future right now.
Amen, brother. Amen. All right. And to wrap things up, we got because we're a very official podcast here, we got some final rapid fire questions.
Sounds good.
You can be rapid or you could take your time with these because some of them are a little bit more thoughtful.
Gotcha.
All right, my brother. First things first, what would you say right now brings you the most joy?
Right now, that brings me the most joy. It's been music. I growing up, one of my favorite things that always brought me joy and kind of grounded me was going to concerts with my mom growing up. She was always my concert buddy. And so there was like a chunk of time recently where I wasn't going to shows and it was just like I'm too sad or life is just life in it and it's too much. And within like this past year, I was like my childhood best friend. He's one of those guys that he's like, I don't give a fuck if anyone goes with me. If I want to go to a concert, I'm going to that concert. And then and then he started reaching out to me and being like, "Hey, I'm going to this show. You want to go to this show with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And then he reaches out again and again. And so I've started going to so many shows this past year. And then my wife and I have shows planned that we're going to. And it's just the most cathartic feeling ever. Just being in a crowd of people, feeling everyone's energy just let loose while getting to enjoy music. Yeah. So that's music's the biggest thing right now for me.
All right, top four values.
Top four values. Uh-oh. Uh, I mean, the first one would be like just honesty. I am someone that's always been like, you gotta, like, that's your word is what matters at the end of the day to me the most. If you're not an honest person, there's just, it creates too much chaos in life. So, like, honesty, um, man. Like service. I think being a serviceable, like someone who gives back, having a like living a serviceable life. Um, I don't really know if this is a value, but being gentle not only to others but to yourself
Hmm.
is a big one. Just have fun. Fun. Just fun. Be silly.
Amen, brother. All right, now spirit animal. What would you say is your spirit animal?
Spirit animal. Possum. Easy.
Oh, I like it. I like it. All right, what is the best place to get a cheesesteak in Philadelphia?
I'm gonna get flamed for this. Oh man. Here, okay. I grew up. The only place I was ever taken when we went to Philly was Pat's King of Steaks. I don't care what you say about it, people. To me, that place will always be near and dear to my heart. And so to me, it's the best because for me, I can taste the love and the memories. So, but like if I were to like reel, I would probably say like Nick's down in the Navy Yard is like a perfect place to get a good cheesesteak as well.
Very, very great answer. Great answer. All right, now this is a little bit more of a thoughtful one
All right.
because as I've kind of been doing these podcasts, trying to sit with my intention for it, and one of the things that really kept popping up was I really just want to celebrate, the guests that are on. And I want to take a moment, for you in just reflection of life. There are many, many, many moments, but one moment that really sticks out when you reflect on that you're most proud of yourself in that moment.
Honestly, it would be getting in the car with my dad to go to the hospital that night.
Mm.
I don't think I've ever made a more difficult choice. And it is my proudest moment at the moment because I probably would not be here having this conversation and being able to share my story and help others, had I not chosen to get in that car with my dad that night and go. So I'll go with that.
Great answer, bro. What is a comfort film of yours? Might not be your favorite, but it's the one that you go back to.
My comfort film. Um, you ever see The Prestige?
Oh yeah.
The Prestige is like the amount of times I've seen that film because it is like for some reason, no matter what, I can watch that film every time and every time. for some reason, the twists, the turns just still hit every time. And it just like it's one of those it's a comfort film for me because when I'm like feeling down and like it's particularly rough on myself, I would say I like to throw it on and watch it and be like dude, like because that was like one of the films that was like I want to make films because of that. Like and also from like an acting standpoint, I was like holy shit, like Christian Bale. I'm like, I want to be at that caliber one day. Like,
Mhm.
so it's like, yeah, it's a comfort film because it's like my kind of kind of like thing to kind of keep reaching for and kind of remind me of like here's what you can maybe achieve one day if you
Mhm.
don't give up.
Ah, it's a great one, dude. Chris Nolan. I haven't seen it. Actually, it's been years since I've seen that film, so I'm putting that back on the Rolodex.
So good.
Gonna watch
So
it soon. All right, this is a doozy, so you can take your time with this one. What is a book, a movie, or a TV character that is most like you?
I hate the one that comes to mind.
Send it.
Author. Oh my God. I still get it sometimes, which is crazy and really not a compliment when people say it. They think it is, and I'm like, it totally isn't. Um, I get told all the time that I remind people of Tate from the very first season of American Horror Story.
You know, I've never seen American Horror Story, so I can't connect the dots, but
He's a horrific character. He's horrific. He is, oh man, but his character is so goddamn well written. And like, there were so many moments where, yeah, I'm sitting there watching for the first time, and it's people being like looking over at me. And I was like, yeah, this feels kind of weird because like just a lot of like the personality and like some of the like things that he like went through and stuff. It's like, hey, it sounds like this dude was like the writer was like, watching my life or something.
Mhm.
Um, but that's like the one that comes to mind. The other one I get sometimes from my wife, which again, I'm like totally not a compliment, is she was like you would play the perfect Arthur Shelby if they ever needed to replace him because he is just you as a person. And I'm like, again, not a
Wait, is that
compliment.
a Peaky Blinders
Peaky
character?
Blinders,
Wait,
yeah.
which one was he?
Oh, he's Tommy's brother with the mustache.
Tommy is Killian Murphy, right?
Correct.
Oh, the one with the mustache. Okay.
Yeah, like absolutely batshit crazy, like personality disorder. Yeah, I was like, thanks. And the
That's
worst
funny.
is like I'm like, fuck, I kind of see it though. Like I
Yeah.
get it.
All right. What is an artist that you look up to that you admire? It could be a musician, it could be a painter, it could be an actor, a director.
Oh, as bleak as it probably could be considered, honestly, for me, someone that I've always looked up to and never to this day have ever stopped, is Kurt Cobain. Um, Everything he stood for at the time was very much just, it was like him existing like because that was the thing he was gone before I could have even known like I was aware old enough to even like I didn't get to experience him in real time unfortunately but like reading his stories like reading like I've read his journal like and stuff and like hearing the stories from people and just his mindset on life he was like the person where I was like holy fucking shit like that's the mindset I want to be able to have and it's because he always had this mindset, and I have I have it tattooed on my arm, is a saying of his, which is, I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not. And it was that phrase of his that just like I latched on to at a very young age and was like, that's what I want to be able to feel. I want to not give a fuck. I want to be able to be who I am, who I want to be, and at the end of the day, not care about what anyone thinks about it because it makes me happy. So he's probably like the person that, like, he's my answer. If someone's like, "Oh, dead person at dinner," it's always him. I'm like, I just want to hear it, hear his mind because it wasn't for this time. It felt like almost.
Hmm. Great answer. Now, what are some, we talked about mental health and we talked about coping mechanisms, self-care routines. I've seen you share some of your self-care routines on the Gramsci, but what are some quick, easy self-care routines that you have implemented that have helped you over time?
Face masks are the biggest one for me. I love a good face mask. Right now, I really love a good mud mask. That's a fun one. It's just like, or not mud,
Mm.
like a clay mask. It's really refreshing. But I love doing masks. They're super quick, super easy. You can literally carry them around with you anywhere. And you can do them in like 15 minutes if you have like a break. Go to your car and just sit there. Like,
Hmm.
but so like that and then the other one has just been I've been journaling a lot. That's been a big one. I never really like journaled a whole lot outside of like doing theater work. That was kind of where I only really journaled, but then I was like I can do this for like my life. And that has definitely helped with like taking care of the mind and like keeping thoughts in track. Um yeah, cold showers is a new one I discovered as well too. That is like because I find like temperature change is like been a really good coping strategy for me. Like when I start kind of ramping up, dude, like I want a cold plunge so bad. Like
Hmm.
it's crazy how well like literally just even taking like cold water and just like immersing my face with it, how much that helps as well. And like it's one of those things where someone's like, yeah, that's a form of self-care. Like you're doing an activity because that was my other thing is like there are so many things that people are like, or I even was like, that there's no way that could be considered self-care. And it's like almost anything that you do to either comfort or do something better for yourself, it could be considered self-care. So, but yeah, those are my top three right now.
Yeah, man, dude, my buddy, he started this company where he does contrast therapy, and I actually helped him out one day where we went into an addiction center, and people who were like didn't know anything about what this was and were kind of like resistant to it, and it was basically a combination of breath work, cold exposure, and then sauna, so like heat exposure.
Yeah.
And bro, I think the one thing about like sometimes you can get in your own head and like there's like mental health can sometimes feel like a really warm blanket that just kind of consumes you, where it's really safe and really comfortable. And changing your physical state is like the fastest way to get out of your own way,
Yep.
to rapidly just like be present in the moment, to just like kind of like almost like peel some skin or something to kind of like I don't know, there's something fascinating about it. I know Tony Robbins talks about changing your state like that. So those are great. Those are great tips. Okay, I'm almost done. Almost done. But there's this podcast called Smartless with three boys, and one of them is Sean Hayes, and he's such a theater head, and he in every podcast when he's talking to a theater person, he always asks, "What is your theater horror story?" And since you've done a lot of theater, I'm curious, do you have a theater horror story that comes to mind?
There's so many. Um, which one's better? Okay. I'll give you one that involves just me because it's super quick, and then one that involves an audience member that got something. So for me, real quick, horror story. Um, I was doing Lysistrata at Widener with Lone Brick Theater Company. I was playing the commissioner, and the closing scene we had it staged that me and Lysistrata we go behind the curtain and canoodle. And during all that, I take my pants off and throw them out onto the stage to evoke like, oh, we're getting dirty. And I would hear it hit the stage, and that was kind of like, just something that like as actors you pick up on these weird sound cues. So it was like every night I would hear it hit. And then It was closing night, so we were recording, and everyone was there. Our president was there, like deans were there. It was crazy. We had never had people turn out to a show like this before. It was wild. It's the final night. I throw the pants out, and right after this, what happens is I'm supposed to run out on stage, get my pants and put them back on, and then kind of stumble my way back, being all flustered. And my cue is I hear the pants hit. So I'm like, I didn't hear the pants hit. What? That's kind of weird. And the girl playing Lisa Strada was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if like they were stuck in the rafters or something? And I was like, no, it wouldn't be. So I go out to do my thing, looking for the pants, looking for the pants. Where the fuck are the pants? She comes out for her cue and is dying laughing and is pointing up like this. I look up, and my pants are hanging from the light rafters. I then had to go take my bow in just my boxers in front of all these people on camera. The audience one, though, is even better. It was an immersive show. We were doing it in Philly. It was called Ashes of a Dead Philosophy, Poe themed, all that stuff. My brother and family are there to see the show. And there is a scene really early on where the audience is brought into a room and there's a guy with a knife under the bed and he stabs the floor from under the bed. Don't know what this guy was thinking that night. I'm laying there waiting for my cue. A lot of time passes. I'm like, what is going on? Finally, a crew member comes over and is like, hey, we're pausing the show. I'm like, okay, finally, why? What's going on? And he's like, come with me. You need to talk to Rob. And I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? I find Rob. And he's like, he grabs me by both my shoulders and he goes, I'm not gonna let you go until I know you're not gonna be freaking out. I'm like, just what's going on? He goes, your brother got stabbed. I was like, excuse me? He was like, your brother was in the scene and the guy with the knife didn't check to see how close the audience member was and just boom, stabbed him almost through and through his foot with the knife.
Oh, what
He's literally holding me because then I'm like, where in the fuck is this guy? I'm gonna kill him. Like it was awful. It was awful. And then of course, so I go to find my brother and family, and my brother's like, yeah. I'm like, what in the fuck is happening? He's like, I'm good. I'm good. He was like, you guys do your thing. I'm like, what is happening? So they take him to the hospital. We regroup, and Rob's like, so I guess the show goes on. So we reset the show, and then I had to perform that whole show after all this, and it was awful. It was awful.
was your did you have to get like was it like deep?
It was deep. It almost went through and through. Yeah,
Wait, like multiple stab wounds? Like it was
just
a
one. It was one. He came down so hard, and that was the thing. I was like, dude. But then I was also like, why are we using a live
real
fucking knife?
crazy. Wow,
Yeah, we
that's
learned
crazy.
after that.
That is wow. All right,
Yeah.
that actually leads myself into the next question. Immersive versus just like regular plays. What's your bread and butter? What do you like prefer?
Immersive easily. That's my wheelhouse. Yeah, once I did my first immersive piece, I was like, this is like the only way to do this, I think.
Mm.
It's yeah, I love it. It's so much more intimate. Like it's so much more you have to literally just because like on a stage, you're from a distance, you can fake putting on a smile. You can fake being sad from a distance, but like when they're right there in your face,
And yeah, and for
those
the
emotions better look real and better almost feel real because but yeah, I love immersive all the way and
for those
I
who
like
don't know,
the
what is immersive like? What is it? Like what does it look like?
oh man. So how do I'm trying to I have always explained it to people that have never heard about it like the audience becomes part of the story. You enter, it's like you stepped into a storybook fantasy world essentially and you are one of the characters in this story. Um And then I explained to them how I'm like, you don't like it's not a seated, everyone's looking at the same stage. Like it's you get integrated, you're gonna be touched maybe. You might be asked to do some awful things to an actor or an actress. Like it's there's just so many more factors that come into play with immersive, that which I like because audiences that are coming into an immersive show, honestly, unless they have been through it before, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what's actually going to come their way. And I like leave kind of doing that to an audience. I like having them kind of come in with maybe some kind of expectation and be like, was not expecting that at all, but that was so cool that I got to do that.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, and final two questions. So you live a hell of a life. You live to be 147 years old, man. You see all them trees, you travel and see the world. All your businesses start blowing up. You're a leader in the space of masculinity and men's and mental health activism, and you are impacting so many lives. You're getting fan mail, and people are saying how much your work has impacted them. You build a family with Sasha, and like you continue to tell stories, and you just live a fruitful, beautiful life for years and years and years and years, while also showcasing your art and championing other artists. But ultimately, your time has come, and you go to that next place, whatever that next place is, and it's the day of your funeral, and all your friends, all your family members are around. What do you want people to say about you, and how do you want to be remembered?
Uh, uh, I always make this joke where I'm like, I want, I just want everyone, if it's like at my funeral, to just stand around my casket and just remember my life. And the only word I want to come to their minds at the end of the day is yikes. I want them to look back and be like, look at all the crazy shit this dude did with his life that I never would have wanted to do, probably. So that's, I want people to look back at my life and say, yikes. I want my life to be, I don't want it to be boring. I want the chaos. Like I know how to, now that I've kind of learned how to navigate and kind of operate within chaos in a more appropriate manner. Like I love living. I just want to continue to live a crazy life where people hear the stories of things that I've been through. Just go, yikes, dude. That's crazy, but that's a story. That's what I want.
Amen. Amen. And finally, you're able to, you probably hear this a lot, but you're able to talk to your young self, young Jared who was going through Catholic school, who was feeling a little lost at times. What advice would you give for young Jared?
I'm gonna go back to the fear, man. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Because again, really early on, fear was ingrained in me, especially, being in the Catholic school. Like it was that mindset of like, because of the way I feel and because of the way I act, because of my mental illness that I have no control over, like I'm gonna go to hell, like eternity, like of hellfire and torture. So it's like, I would just tell them, don't be scared. It is okay. Don't be scared. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna find your path. That's exactly what I did. I thought I would be trapped in that little world for so long, and then I got out. It's doable, but it's because I wasn't scared anymore. So
Yeah.
don't be scared. Fear is a mind killer.
I love that story, by the way, the fact that the book came into your life at that perfect
Yeah,
moment.
man. It was very poetic.
Yeah, dude, God just planting seeds, planting seeds. But my brother, dude, this was actually so epic, and so I usually don't like run them this long, but I'm like I just want to listen to everything you freaking say because you're providing so much value for
I
me, and it
appreciate that,
honestly makes
man.
me want to be a better man, a better person. And it makes me feel like I'm sorry I didn't reach out like over the years, over the time, more. So I want to be better and more accountable, in that front. But dude, I'm just so excited to see what you got in store, what you got coming out. I'm a champion, dude. I'm like freaking, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So thank you so much for being here, bro. I love you. But before I let you go, let the audience know where can we find you? Where can we support you on this journey?
So Yeah, Instagram is mostly where I operate these days. There is the Yikes a Wolf Productions page. Not really anything up there. But then there's the Homies Mental Health and Hypocrisy podcast. If you just type in HMHH podcast, it should pop up on Instagram. And that I'm gonna start picking up more and start posting more again. But yeah, so you can find me there and all my other ones are connected through there. So if you want to find any of my other stuff, you'll be able to follow the maze there.
Amen, bro. Amen. I remember, dude. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, man. This was fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having a space where I could even come on and share this kind of story to help people, man. So appreciate all you do. Keep it up, dude.